Hello and welcome. Settle in and let your body grow heavy, your mind soft. There is nothing required of you here. Nothing but to breathe and to listen. Tonight, we are not so much traveling through history as we are drifting into it, letting its currents carry us to a place where the line between what was real and what was believed to be real simply dissolves. We are going to a time when gods walked the earth, not with claps of thunder or grand pronouncements, but with the quiet mischief of a stranger you might meet on a dusty road. We are journeying into a myth, a story told for thousands of years, whispered in firelight and carved into stone. It's a strange and beautiful little tale, full of sunshine, seawater, and a very, very bad business decision. And as we drift along with the story, allow your own thoughts to drift as well. There is no test at the end, no need to remember the names or the dates. The only goal is to feel the gentle pull of sleep. You have the permission to let go. In fact, you probably won't make it through this day we're about to live. And that's perfectly all right. Before we begin our journey, if you find some small measure of peace here, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our little channel, Sleep with Stories. Give this video a gentle, a quiet little click to let us know we're helping. And feel free to leave a comment telling us where in the world you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's a comfort to imagine you all scattered across the globe, resting together in this shared moment of quiet. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Close your eyes if you haven't already, and just beat out the first thing you notice. Is the sun. It's not the harsh, hurried sun of your world. This is an ancient sun, a Mediterranean sun, and it warms the wooden planks beneath you with a deep, penetrating heat. You're lying on the deck of a ship, the gentle, rhythmic creaking of its timbers, a constant, soothing companion. It's a sound that has rocked countless sailors to sleep, a lullaby of wood and water. You can feel the slow, heavy roll of the Aegean Sea as the vessel cuts through the impossibly blue water. It's a motion that sinks deep into your bones. A cradle rocking in an endless ocean. Take a slow breath in. You can taste the salt on the air, sharp and clean. Beneath it, there are other, earthier smells. The faint, sweet aroma of pine pitch used to seal the hull, the ghost of spilled wine from last night's rations, the slightly musty scent of damp rope, and the very human smell of unwashed men working. Under the heat of the day, you open your eyes, just a crack. You're on a merchant ship, a sturdy, broad-bellied vessel designed for cargo, not for speed. It's a functional, slightly grimy place. Coils of thick, greasy rope lie unorganized. Chaos. A few clay amphorae, tall and elegant even in their utilitarian purpose, are lashed to the mast. The crew is a scattered handful of men, their skin tanned to the color of worn leather from a lifetime spent in this relentless sun. They move with an economy of motion, a competence born of endless repetition. They are Tyrrhenians, a people known across these waters for their skill as sailors and for their less reputable talents as pirates. This particular ship and its crew walk that fine line. Today they are merchants. Yesterday, who can say? The Tyrrhenian pirates were a genuine force in the Aegean during this archaic period, a constant threat to the burgeoning trade routes that were the lifeblood of the Greek city-states. They weren't just opportunistic thugs. They were a part of the maritime landscape, as dangerous and as unpredictable as any sudden storm. The captain, a man named Acotes, stands at the stern, his hand resting lightly on the tiller. He's the one who's good at remembering where the rocks are, which in this age of navigation makes him the equivalent of a state-of-the-art GPS. He seems more focused than the others, his eyes constantly scanning the horizon, the sails, the water. The rest of the crew seems bored. Two of them are crouched near the bow, engrossed in a game. They toss and catch small, polished sheep knuckles, their movements quick and deft. It's a game of Penalitha, 5 stones, a simple pastime to ward off the monotony of a long voyage. It's a small human moment, a pocket of normalcy in the vast, empty expanse of the sea, but there is something not normal on the ship today. Amidst the rough spun tunics and weathered faces of the crew, there is another figure, a passenger. Lounging near the mast is a young man of impossible beauty. He has long, dark curls that spill over his shoulders, and his face is serene, almost unnervingly calm. He wears a fine-spun robe of a deep, rich purple, a color so vibrant it seems to drink the sunlight. It's a garment completely unsuited for sea travel, the kind of thing you'd wear if you were confident you'd never have to swab a deck or mend a sail in your life. The crew had found him that morning on the shores of the island of Icaria, seemingly alone and asleep. Seeing his expensive attire, their mercantile instincts, the piratical ones, had immediately taken over. A young nobleman, they thought, lost perhaps or exiled. Worth a handsome ransom, certainly. They had offered him passage, a kindness, masking their greed, and he had accepted with a quiet, knowing smile. As you watch, the captain glances over at this strange, beautiful passenger. A flicker of doubt crosses his face. He is a Tyrrhenian himself, a man of the sea. There's a long-standing question, a puzzle that even modern historians still debate, about the origins of his people. Historians still debate whether the Tyrrhenians were originally from Lydia in what is now Turkey, or were an indigenous Italian people who took to the sea. Acotes doesn't know the grand sweep of his people's history, but he knows their nature. He knows the sea, and he knows men. And there is something about this youth, this serene boy in his regal purple robe, that feels wrong. It's a discordant note in the simple song of the sea. It's a whisper of divinity on a ship full of mortals whose only real god is profit. The rest of the crew sees a payday. Acotes, the helmsman, the watcher, sees something else. He sees a story beginning to unfold, and he has a sinking feeling that he will not like the ending. For now, though, there is only the sun, the creaking wood, and the gentle, endless rock of the ship on the deep blue water. The sun climbs higher, bleaching the color from the sky, and the heat intensifies. The air grows thick and heavy, each breath a little warmer than the last. The shadows on the deck shorten, retreating from the relentless glare. The rhythmic slap of waves against the hull continues its steady, lulling beat, a timeless pulse measuring out the day. You can feel the sweat trickling down your temples, the salt of it stinging your eyes just a little. The initial gentle warmth of the morning has ripened into the full, oppressive heat of a Mediterranean noon. The ship plows onward, an isolated world of wood and men, adrift in an ocean of shimmering light. The only sound, apart from the sea, is the low murmur of the crew, their voices rough and conspiratorial. Their eyes keep flicking towards the strange passenger. The initial pretense of hospitality has worn thin, replaced by a greedy, impatient energy. They've decided the time for pleasantries is over. The captain, Acotes, watches them from his post at the tiller, a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. He's the only one who feels it, this strange, prickling sense of dread. He looks at the young man who hasn't moved. The passenger is just sitting there, a small, serene smile on his lips, as if he's enjoying the warmth of the sun and the gentle sea breeze, completely oblivious to the shift in atmosphere. Or perhaps not oblivious at all. That's the thought that chills Acotes more than any winter wind. He wants to shout at his men, to tell them to leave the boy alone, to turn the ship around and put him back on whatever shore they found him. But he holds his tongue. A pirate captain questioning a payday is a captain who won't be captain for long. There's no human resources department to file a complaint with if your crew decides you've lost your nerve. One of the sailors A big, barrel-chested man with a ragged beard lumbers over to the passenger. He's holding a length of thick, sturdy rope. "All right, my lord," he says, his voice a mocking growl. "Time to make sure you don't get washed overboard." The other men snicker, gathering around. They see a soft, helpless nobleman, an easy prize. Their minds are already in some future port, spending the ransom money on wine and cheap comforts. This was the dark reality of the ancient Mediterranean economy. Piracy wasn't just about gold coins and treasure chests. It was more often than not about people. Human trafficking was the real business model. A living, breathing son of a wealthy family was worth far more than any cargo of olive oil or grain. The big sailor grabs the young man's wrists. They are slender, smooth, and feel strangely cool to the touch despite the heat of the day. He begins to wrap the rope around them, his movements practiced but clumsy, like a man who learned to tie knots by watching someone else do it once with great confidence. The young man doesn't resist. He simply watches, that same maddeningly calm smile on his face. The sailor pulls the knot tight and steps back, satisfied. And then something impossible happens. The rope, thick and strong, simply falls away. It doesn't untie. It doesn't break. It loosens of its own accord and slithers to the deck like a dead snake. There is a moment of stunned silence, broken only by the creak of the ship and the sigh of the waves. The sailors stare at the rope, then at the young man, his wrists now free. The big sailor scowls, thinking he must have made a mistake. He picks up the rope and tries again, his movements rougher this time, more determined. He wraps it around the passenger's wrist, then around his arms, his chest, winding him up like a spool of thread. He ties 3 different, complex knots. He learned from a fisherman in Crete. He pulls on them, testing their strength. They are solid. He grunts in satisfaction and steps back again. And again, with a soft, slithering sound, the ropes unwind themselves and fall, limp and useless, onto the sun-baked planks. A nervous murmur ripples through the crew. They look at each other, their greedy smirks replaced by frowns of confusion. A few of them glance nervously towards the bow, where a large stylized eye is painted onto the wood. This ophthalmos, or eye, was a common feature on Greek ships, an apotropaic symbol meant to ward off evil, to provide divine guidance, and to protect the ship from the malevolent glare of the evil eye. Right now, it doesn't seem to be working. Their simple, violent plan has just run headfirst into something they cannot comprehend. The passenger, their supposed captive, flexes his fingers as if stretching after a nap. He looks at the befuddled sailors with an expression of gentle, patient amusement, the way an adult might watch a toddler stubbornly trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Only Akotes at the stern is not surprised. He is terrified. The unease in his gut has blossomed into full-blown fear. He knew this was no mortal man. Navigating these seas required more than just skill with a tiller. It required a deep, intuitive understanding of the world. We can't be entirely certain how these ancient sailors navigated with such precision across the open sea, but it likely involved a complex mental map of coastlines, currents, and even the flight patterns of birds. Akotes' intuition, honed by years of such observation, was screaming at him. He knew, with a certainty that went deeper than thought, that they had not captured a prince. They had captured something else entirely. And the strange impossible magic of the falling ropes was only the beginning. The air felt even heavier now, charged with a strange new energy, and the gentle rocking of the boat no longer felt soothing. It felt like the slow, deliberate breath of a predator. The silence on the ship is now thick and brittle. The crew, a moment ago so confident in their brute force, now stands frozen, a collective statue of disbelief. Their minds simple and direct. are struggling to process what they've just seen. Ropes do not simply fall off. It is not in their nature. The big sailor who had tied the knots, a man named Lycabas, stares at his own hands as if they have betrayed him, as if they have forgotten the fundamental laws of friction and tension that he has relied upon his entire life. He's probably questioning his whole career choice at this point. Being a farmer suddenly seems like a much more stable profession, one where inanimate objects generally stay where you put them. The beautiful young man on the deck hasn't moved, but the air around him seems to shimmer, to vibrate with a silent, invisible power dot that is a Cotes, the helmsman who finally breaks the spell. He lets go of the tiller and takes a hesitant step forward, his face pale beneath his tan. His voice is low, strained, but it carries across the deck with the desperate weight of certainty. "Fools," he whispers, and the word is not an insult, but a plea. "You blind fools. Do you not see what stands before you? This is no mortal boy. We have taken a god onto our ship." He points a trembling finger at the passenger. "We must put him back, now, beg his forgiveness, and leave him on the shore where we found him." The crew turns to look at him, their confusion curdling into suspicion. Lycabas lets out a short, harsh laugh. "A god? The sun has cooked your brain, old man. He is a boy. A trickster, maybe, a magician. But his tricks won't save him when we reach Naxos." He glares at Acotes, his eyes narrowing. "Or maybe you just want the ransom for yourself?" The other men murmur in agreement, their greed reasserting itself, overriding the flicker of fear. To them, Acotes' sudden piety looks like a scheme. They look at him as if he has just calmly suggested they abandon piracy and take up competitive basket. Weaving set the course for Naxos. Lycabas barks, turning his back on both Acotes and the strange boy. "The rest of you, get to your posts. Let's see his magic save him from the slave markets." The men, reassured by his bluster, begin to move, their boots thudding on the deck. They are choosing to believe the simple, profitable explanation over the terrifying, impossible one. It is a very human choice, and it is then that the world begins to change. It starts not with a sound, but with a smell. A fragrance, rich and sweet, rises from the very planks of the deck. It is the scent of crushed grapes, of dark earth after, a spring rain, of honey and blooming flowers all at once. It is intoxicating. The men stop what they are doing, sniffing the air, and then they see it. Near the base of the mainmast, a dark purple liquid is seeping up through the seams between the wooden planks. It pools for a moment, glistening like a jewel in the harsh sunlight, and then begins to trickle across the deck in a slow, lazy stream. One of the younger sailors, braver or perhaps just more foolish than the rest, crouches down. He dips a finger into the liquid and brings it to his lips. His eyes go wide. "Wine," he breathes, his voice full of wonder. "It's wine." In an instant, the discipline of the ship dissolves. The men crowd around, dipping their fingers, their cupped hands, into the miraculous stream. It is wine, of a quality they have never known. In their world, wine was almost always cut with water, a daily staple to be drunk from a shallow cup called a kylix. To drink it unmixed was considered a barbaric act, something for wild Thracians or uncivilized centaurs. This wine, however, felt different. It was pure and powerful, yet it did not burn. It tasted of sunlight and joy itself. Historians continue to debate the true nature of the earliest Dionysian cults and how much of their ecstatic rituals were historical reality versus later dramatic embellishment. But in this moment, the crew is getting a private demonstration. More streams of wine appear, seeping from the wood, flowing from the railings, trickling down the mast. The ship is beginning to weep wine. The pirates, all thoughts of ransom forgotten, are laughing now, scooping up the divine vintage. They see it as a gift, a miracle, a reward for their audacity. It is the ultimate get-rich-quick scheme. Why bother with ransom when the gods provide an open bar? Only Akotis stands apart, his back pressed against the stern, his face a mask of horror. He knows this is not a gift, it is a warning. He looks at the passenger who is watching the spectacle with that same placid smile. But now there is a new light in the god's eyes, a spark of something ancient and wild. The overture is over. The main performance is about to begin. The deck is now awash with the miraculous wine. It sloshes around the sailors' ankles, staining their tunics and filling the air with its impossibly rich perfume. The initial delight of the crew is beginning to give way to a stunned, drunken confusion. The ship, their solid, reliable world of wood and pitch and rope, is behaving in ways a ship should not. The wine is no longer just seeping. It flows in earnest, gurgling from the scuppers, cascading down the mast in a deep purple waterfall. The gentle creaking of the timbers is being replaced by a new sound, a low, vibrant hum, as if the entire vessel is coming alive. Then the mast groans, a deep, resonant sound like a waking giant. Before the pirates' astonished eyes, a pale green shoot erupts from the solid wood. It grows with unnatural speed, thickening into a vine, which wraps itself around the mast in a tight embrace. More vines erupt, bursting from the wood with a soft, tearing sound. They unfurl glossy, heart-shaped leaves and snake across the deck, their tendrils questing and grasping. One of the sailors, Lycabas, draws his bronze knife, a short, leaf-shaped blade, and hacks at a thick vine coiling near his feet. It's like trying to fight a tidal wave with a dinner spoon. The vine barely registers the blow, continuing its relentless advance, wrapping itself around the sailor's leg. Within minutes, the transformation accelerates into a frenzy of supernatural growth. The rigging, the thick ropes that hold the sail, become festooned with flowering ivy. The bare wood of the deck sprouts cushions of soft green moss. And from the vines hanging in great, heavy festoons from the mast, clusters of grapes begin to form. They swell from tiny green beads to plump, dark purple fruit in a matter of seconds, so heavy they bow the vines towards the deck. The ship is no longer a ship. It has become a floating forest, a phantom vineyard adrift on the blue Aegean Doddan, or left lying near the ship's rail, begins to change. Ivy winds up its shaft, and a cluster of leaves and berries sprouts from its broad blade. A pinnacone mysteriously appears at the very top, crowning it. It has become a thyrsus, the ritual staff carried by the followers of Dionysus. It is a symbol of prosperity, fertility, and pleasure, but seeing it manifest here, born from a simple tool of their trade, fills the pirates with a primal dread. This is not their world anymore. They are trespassers in a place of terrifying power. As if to confirm their fears. A new sound weaves its way through the rustling leaves and dripping wine. It is music. The high, clear notes of a flute, a reedy pipe called an aulos, drifts on the air, seemingly from nowhere. Then comes the frantic, joyful beat of a hand drum, a tympanon. The music is wild, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling. It speaks of mad dances in moonlit glades, of unbound ecstasy and primal frenzy. It is the soundtrack to the loss of all control. The precise symbolic leap from a god of wine to a master of ferocious predators like the panther remains a point of gentle scholarly disagreement, a mystery wrapped in myth. But the pirates are about to learn the connection firsthand, taught through the impossible foliage. The young passenger rises to his feet. He is no longer a slender, beautiful boy. He seems taller, broader, his eyes glowing with a dark, golden light. He is wreathed in his own creation, a living god in his floating, temporary temple. He smiles, and it is a terrible thing to see, full of ancient power and pitiless joy. A deep, guttural roar echoes across the water, a sound that does not belong on the sea. It is the sound of a great cat, a lion, or a panther. The pirates, trapped in the writhing, wine-soaked forest that was once their ship, look at each other in raw panic. Their plan to get rich has soured into the worst open bar in history. They scramble back, tripping over vines, slipping in the wine, their faces smeared with a mixture of purple juice and pure terror. Acotes, alone at the stern, huddles by the now vine-choked tiller, praying to any god he can think of, any god at all, except for the one who is standing before him, orchestrating their doom with a song. The roar that echoes across the water is not a distant threat. It is here on the ship with you. It is a deep, chest-rattling sound that vibrates through the wine-soaked planks and up into your bones. Lounging at the feet of the transformed god, where a moment before there was nothing but air, is a great panther. Its coat is a silken canvas of black rosettes on gold, and its muscles shift with fluid power beneath its skin, even as it lies perfectly still. Its green eyes are fixed on the crew, unblinking and utterly devoid of fear. The panther's presence is a statement. These creatures, leopards and panthers, were symbols of Dionysus's foreign origins, his connection to the exotic, untamed lands of the East, like Lydia or even faraway India. To the Greeks, this was not just a dangerous animal. It was a living embodiment of a world beyond their shores, a wildness they could not control, now brought directly into their small, floating sphere of existence, the wild music of the unseen. Flute and drum swells, a frantic, pulsing rhythm that seems to drive the very growth of the vines around you. The pirates are trapped, mesmerized by a terror so profound it has stolen the air from their lungs and the strength from their limbs. It is hard for us to know if the ancient Greeks envisioned these divine epiphanies as literal physical events, or as powerful, ecstatic visions that blurred the line between mind and reality. For the men on this ship, the distinction is meaningless. The fear is real. The teeth are real. Then, from the unnatural shadows behind the grape-laden mast, another shape emerges. This one is not sleek and exotic. It is a creature of brute, familiar force. A great brown bear lumbers onto the deck, its claws scraping against the wood. It shakes its massive head, its small, dark eyes glowing with a red light, reflecting the madness of the god who summoned it. It lets out a huffing snort, its breath mingling with the sweet scent of wine and foliage. This is not the kind of wildlife sighting one hopes for on a gentle Aegean cruise. The pirates, who thought themselves the apex predators of this sea, are now faced with true primal power. The spell of paralysis breaks. Raw, animal panic takes over. Lycabas, the burly sailor who had been so confident, so dismissive, lets out a strangled cry. He turns, stumbling over a thick, gnarled line, and scrambles towards the ship's rail. The others follow suit, their greed forgotten, their bravado evaporated. They are no longer pirates or sailors. They are just frightened men, desperate to escape a nightmare. They claw their way through the grasping ivy, slipping on grapes that burst under their feet, their eyes wide with a terror that has no room for thought. They are trying to get away from the bear, from the panther, from the terrifying music, and from the smiling god who watches them with serene, merciless amusement. One of them, a young man who had laughed the loudest when they first captured the boy, is the first to reach the edge. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't look back. He launches himself over the side, his body a frantic arc against the blue sky. There's a splash, a brief explosion of white foam in the endless blue of the sea. It is the sound of absolute surrender. Acotes, still huddled at the stern, watches it all unfold. He sees the protective ophthalmos, the painted eye on the bow. Now half hidden by a curtain of ivy, its apotropaic magic utterly defeated. It has seen the evil, and it was not warded off. It was invited aboard for a drink. The rest of the crew is right behind the first man, a clumsy, desperate exodus. They are finally putting their swimming skills to the test, though not in any way they might have anticipated. The water of the Aegean is a shock, a sudden cold embrace after the wine-warmed chaos of the deck. For the pirates who have thrown themselves into the sea, it is a moment of pure, gasping relief. They have escaped the floating nightmare, the bear and the panther, the impossible vineyard. But their relief is fleeting, vanishing in the instant they try to take their first stroke, to kick their legs and pull themselves away from the enchanted ship. Something is wrong. Their bodies do not obey. A strange, convulsive energy seizes them, a force that is not of the water, but from within their own bones and flesh. You see it happen to Lycabas first, as he struggles in the water. His desperate, grasping hands, the ones that so confidently tied the useless knots, begin to change. His fingers fuse together, flattening, elongating, the skin smoothing over into a tough gray membrane. His arms shorten and stiffen, the bones reshaping themselves into the rigid, powerful structure of flippers. He opens his mouth to scream, a curse, or a plea, but the sound that comes out is not human. It is a high-pitched, clicking shriek, a sound of alien distress. The change moves up his body like a wave. His legs merge, the muscle and bone flowing together into a single powerful tail, a fluke that slaps instinctively against the water's surface, propelling him forward with a speed he has never known. He has rather abruptly become a much better swimmer. His face contorts, his nose and jaw stretching forward, hardening into the smooth, streamlined shape of a beak or a snout. His skin becomes sleek, rubbery, and gray. He is no longer Lycabas, the Tyrrhenian pirate. He is something else. He is a creature of the sea, sleek and powerful, yet his eyes, now set on the side of his head, still hold a flicker of human terror, a dawning, horrified comprehension of his new form. Around him, the sea boils with the same impossible transformation. The entire crew, all who leaped from the ship, are being remade. Their screams become chirps and whistles, their human forms twisting and flowing into the graceful, arched bodies of dolphins. Their fate is a masterpiece of divine irony. The dolphin held a special, almost sacred place in the Greek world. They were considered philomythos, friends to humanity, saviors of the shipwrecked, messengers of the sea gods. The pirates who lived by preying on sailors are now condemned to exist as the very creature most famous for helping them. Scholars have long pondered the meaning of this particular transformation. Is it a punishment or a strange, watery form? A divine mercy, a life sentence as a friend to man. They are finally, truly, men of the sea, though not in a way they would have ever chosen. From the deck, Acotes watches, his knuckles white where he grips a vine-choked rail. The sea around the ship is now filled with a pod of newly born dolphins. They leap and dive in confused, frantic patterns, their new instincts warring with the fading ghosts of their human minds. The wine flowing from the ship's scuppers meets the salt water, creating a pale purple foam on the waves. The wild music has faded. The terrible animals are gone. The floating vineyard is just a ship again, though still draped in a silent, impossible canopy of vine and ivy. The passenger, the god, turns his gaze to Acotes. His form is once again that of a serene, beautiful youth. He looks at the one sailor who recognized him, the one man who chose fear and reverence over greed. The air is calm. The massacre, in its own strange way, is over. The god looks at Acotes, and for the first time he speaks. Acotes. The voice is not loud. It is as calm and quiet as the surface of the sea on a windless day, yet it cuts through the silence, through your fear, and lands directly in the center of your soul. It is the voice of the beautiful young man, the passenger, the god. He stands near the mast, the last vestiges of ivy and grape leaf seeming to melt back into the wood behind him, leaving the ship looking damp and stained like the aftermath of a wild celebration you can't quite remember. He knows your name. Of course, he knows your name. He probably knows the name of your childhood pet, and that one time you stole a fig from a neighbor's tree. Gods have a terrible advantage when it comes to personal information. You are still pressed against the stern, your hands gripping the tiller that feels both familiar and utterly alien. You look at him, and for the first time, you don't just see a beautiful boy or a terrifying force of nature. You see something else, a being of pure, undiluted essence. He is not like anything, he just is. You have a wise heart, a Codies of Tyrrhenia. The god continues, his voice a gentle melody. You saw the vine when others saw only the rope. You felt the coming storm when others saw only a clear sky. He takes a step toward you, his movements fluid and unhurried. Your crewmates chose the sea, a fitting choice for men who lived by its whims. They will be its clowns now, its acrobats, its strange and joyful saviors. A better life, perhaps, than the one they had planned. He stops a few feet away from you. The panther and the bear are gone, the phantom music has faded, but the power remains. It radiates from him like heat from a blacksmith's forge. They saw a boy to be sold, he says, his lips curving into that serene, unnerving smile. But you saw God, so tell me, helmsman, what God do you see? The question hangs in the air. It's a test. Your throat is dry, your tongue a clumsy piece of wood in your mouth. You are a sailor. Your gods are practical ones. Poseidon for a calm sea, the Dioscuri for protection from storms. You leave offerings, you say the right words. It's a transaction. This is different. This is a job interview for a position you never applied for. You swallow, the sound loud in the quiet. You are Dionysus, you whisper. The name feels dangerous to speak, like uttering a secret that could crack the world open. Son of Zeus and Semele, the twice-born, the liberator. The god's smile widens. It is a smile of genuine pleasure, of approval. He is a god who appreciates being seen, being known. Very good, he murmurs. You have listened to the stories whispered by the old women, the tales told by the fire. You know my nature. He gestures vaguely at the sea, where the dark curved. Backs of the dolphins still leap and play. My nature's transformation. I turn sorrow into madness, madness into joy. I can turn men into beasts. He pauses, and his eyes darken for a fraction of a second. And in my great festivals, my followers sometimes perform the sporagmos, the sacred hunt, where they become the beast to feel my divinity. The mention of the sporagmos, the ritual tearing apart of a sacrificial animal, sends a cold spike of fear through you. It is the dark side of the ecstatic coin, the bloody reality behind the joyful music. We still aren't entirely sure if the legendary tales of Maenads tearing apart live animals were literal retellings or symbolic allegories for spiritual ecstasy. But as you look at the god before you, you have a feeling that with him, it could be very, very literal. But I can also turn a pirate into a priest, Dionysus says, his voice soft again. The word hangs between you. Priest, you a priest. You know how to rate the stars, how to mend a sail, how to haggle for cargo prices. In 7 different dialects. Your only sacred ritual is watering down the ship's wine to make it last longer. The priesthoods you know of belong to stately temples in great cities, run by nobles in clean robes. The cult of Dionysus, however, was often a different matter entirely. It was a religion of the countryside, of the people, a faith of ecstatic. Experience, not rigid dogma. Its priests were not administrators. They were guides into the divine frenzy. Your life as a sailor is over, Acotes, the god says, not as a threat, but as a simple statement of fact. You will serve me now. You will be my first apostle on the sea. You will tell this story. You will teach them to see the God who walks among them, disguised as a stranger. He turns and gazes east, toward the direction you were already headed. Now, take this ship to Naxos. My work here is not yet done. It is the same destination your crew had chosen out of greed. Now, you will go there on a divine errand. You look at your hands, then back at the god. You have no choice, and you know it. Your old life sank beneath the waves with the screams of your crewmates. You are Acotes, the sailor, no more. You are now Acotes, the first witness. You take a deep breath, the salt air mingling with the ghost of spilled wine, and you turn the ship toward the hazy silhouette of the island on the horizon. The dolphins follow, a strangely cheerful funeral procession for the men they used to. The journey to Naxos is the quietest voyage of your life. The sea is calm, the wind is steady, and the sun is a gentle, benevolent presence in a pale blue sky. It is a perfect day for sailing, and yet the silence is heavier than any storm you have ever weathered. You stand at the tiller, your hands, guiding the ship with a muscle memory that feels disconnected from your conscious mind. Every creak of the wood, every slap of a wave against the hull sounds amplified, reverberating in the profound stillness. You are alone on this ship, and you are not alone at all. Dionysus sits near the bow, in the same spot where the pirates had played their game of knucklebones an eternity ago. He is once again the beautiful, serene youth. He does not speak. He simply watches the sea, his expression as placid and unreadable as the water's surface. He is your passenger, your captain, and your new employer. Your relationship is still in that awkward early phase where you're not sure if you're allowed to make small talk. Given the morning's events, you decide it's probably best to stick to quiet, diligent work. You perform your duties. You check the single sail, coil a loose rope, scan the horizon. Each task is a small prayer, an act of normalcy in a world that has been irrevocably shattered and remade. You look at the coils of thick rope, the very same lengths that had fallen from the god's limbs, and you see them differently. They are no longer just tools, they are artifacts. They are the dumb witnesses to a miracle. Your escort remains with you. The dolphins, your former crewmates, swim alongside the ship. They leap from the water in graceful, soaring arcs, their sleek gray bodies catching the sunlight. They chatter and click to one another, a language you do not understand, but whose joyful energy is unmistakable. Are they happy? Is this a better existence? To be free of greed and toil, to live as a beloved creature of the sea, a friend to humanity? Or is it an eternal punishment to be trapped in a state of simple, animal joy while the ghost of your human mind screams unheard from within? You watch one of them, who you think might have been Lycabas, chase a flying fish, and you decide it's probably better not to dwell on it. It's a theological question far above your new pay grade, as the day wears on. The island of Naxos grows larger, resolving from a hazy smudge into a solid mass of green hills and white rock. You see the glint of marble quarries on the mountainside. Naxos in this age is a titan of the Aegean. It is rich, powerful, and famous for two things: its peerless marble and its potent wine. It's a fitting destination for a god of revelry, and a perfect place to start a new cult. As you draw closer, you see a monumental structure taking shape on a small islet connected to the main harbor. It is a massive doorway, two colossal marble posts with a lintel across the top, standing alone against the sky. It is the Portara, the great, unfinished gate to what was likely a temple of Apollo. A project of such immense scale speaks to the island's wealth and ambition. It is a grand statement of mortal power, and you are sailing into its shadow, chauffeuring. A god who could turn the entire island into a vineyard if he felt whimsical, the god stirs. Dionysus rises and walks toward you, his purple robe a splash of impossible color against the muted blues and browns of the sea and the ship. They violated the sacred laws of Xenia, he says, his voice calm. He's referring to your crew, but the words carry a broader weight. Xenia, the code of hospitality, was the bedrock of Greek society. It was a sacred duty, protected by Zeus himself, to welcome and protect travelers. Your crew had offered passage, a form of Xenia, and then betrayed it with greed. Their transformation was not just a display of power, it was a divine sentence for a social crime. There is another broken promise on this island, Dionysus continues, his eyes fixed on the shore, a hero's promise to a princess. He is talking about Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos of Crete, who helped the Athenian hero Theseus slay the Minotaur. Theseus had promised to marry her, but had abandoned her. Here, on this very island, while she slept. The details of Ariadne's story vary wildly between different ancient sources. Some say she died of grief on Naxos, others that she was rescued by Dionysus and made his immortal wife. You're about to find out which version is true. Heroes can be so forgetful, Dionysus adds, a touch of dry humor in his voice. They're so busy building their legends, they misplace the people who make them possible. The ship glides past the great marble gate and into the bustling harbor of Naxos. The scent of the land rushes out to meet you, a smell of baked earth, olive trees, and the faint hint of fermenting grapes from the island's famous wineries. Your journey as a pirate is over. Your journey as the ferryman for a lovelorn god has just begun. You guide the ship toward an empty stretch of dock, your heart pounding and nervous, uncertain rhythm against your ribs. The day began with a kidnapping. It seems it will end with a divine rescue mission. You guide the ship toward a quiet part of the harbor, away from the main thoroughfare of commerce where vessels from across the Aegean are noisily loading and unloading their wares. The air is thick with the sounds of Naxian life, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouts of merchants haggling over prices, the braying of a donkey somewhere up the winding streets. Men are rolling huge, gleaming white drums of marble down stone ramps to be loaded onto waiting barges, their muscles straining. The sheer scale of the operation is staggering. That unfinished gate you saw, the Portara, was the pet project of a local tyrant named Ligdamus, a monument to his own ambition. Seeing the raw material here, you realize it wasn't just a temple. It was a statement that Naxos could afford to build mountains on top of its mountains. It's all very civilized, which makes you deeply uncomfortable. Your world is one of open water and sudden, brutal simplicity. This is a world of contracts, deadlines, and organized labor. Dionysus steps lightly from the ship onto the stone dock. He doesn't wait for a gangplank. He doesn't look back. He simply expects you to follow, and you do, hastily securing the ship with a knot that feels woefully inadequate for tethering a floating miracle. You are his sole follower, his entire retinue. The pod of dolphins, your former crew, linger near the mouth of the harbor, their playful leaps a stark contrast to the purposeful grit of the human city. They will not come closer. This is not their world anymore. Dionysus walks with a calm, unhurried gait, yet he moves with an undeniable purpose. He threads his way through the bustling crowds, a river of purple silk flowing through a sea of dusty, earth-toned tunics. No one seems to notice him. It's as if he is wrapped in a cloak of divine anonymity, visible only to you. He leads you away from the harbor, up a well-worn path that winds toward the coast, away from the city's noise. The scent of wild thyme and sun-baked rock replaces the smell of fish and commerce. You walk in silence, the god a few paces ahead of you. He doesn't ask for directions. He doesn't scan the landscape. He walks as if following an invisible thread, pulled by a force only he can perceive. Apparently, Heartbroken Princess is a scent he can track better than a bloodhound. You pass a small, rustic shrine by the side of the path, a simple pile of stones with a few faded ribbons tied to an olive branch. A humble offering to a local nymph, perhaps? Dionysus doesn't even glance at it. He has bigger things on his mind. After a few minutes, the path opens onto a secluded cove. It is beautiful, a perfect crescent of white sand sheltered by rocky arms. The water here is crystal clear, shading from pale turquoise to a deep, placid sapphire. And there, near the center of the beach, half in the shade of a low-hanging tamarisk tree, is a figure, a woman asleep on the sand. Her dark hair is a wild tangle around her head, and she is dressed in fine, vibrantly colored linen, a style you recognize as Cretan. Her clothes are adorned with complex, swirling patterns, intricate, maze-like designs that seem to echo the very labyrinth she escaped from. This detail, this echo of her home on her very person, was a subtle but common feature in Minoan art. And textiles, a love for flowing, complex patterns drawn from the natural world. She is curled on her side, like a child, one hand clutching a seashell. Even in sleep, her face is etched with sorrow. This is Ariadne, abandoned, left behind by the hero she saved. Theseus, the great slayer of the Minotaur, famous for navigating the unnavigable maze, was apparently defeated by the challenge of a proper goodbye. Archaeologists and mythographers still argue about the precise stretch of sand where Theseus left her, or even if he left her here at all. But in this moment, for you, this is the place. This is the scene of the crime. Dionysus stops at the edge of the beach. He looks at the sleeping princess, and his face, for the first time, is not serene or amused. It is soft. It is filled with a profound, ancient pity. He is about to intervene. And you, Acotes, the accidental priest, have a front row seat. You stand at a respectful distance, feeling like an intruder on a scene of immense and private significance. You feel less like a priest and more like a celestial chaperone, trying to look busy by inspecting a nearby shrub with intense, feigned interest. The sun is warm, the waves whisper on the shore, and a princess sleeps off the worst day of her life. Dionysus moves across the sand, his footsteps making no sound. He kneels beside Ariadne, a silent, graceful motion. He doesn't touch her. He simply watches her for a long moment, his presence a shield against the world. The air around them seems to grow warmer, sweeter. The scent of wine and wild roses drifts on the breeze, a fragrance that you now recognize as the god's own personal calling card. Ariadne stirs in her sleep. A small pained sound escapes her lips, her brow furrows. She is reliving the nightmare. The moment she woke up alone, the sail of Theseus's ship a disappearing speck on the horizon. She is the daughter of King Minos, a princess from the mighty civilization of Crete. Her home, Knossos, was a place of bewildering complexity, a palace so vast and sprawling that to the simpler, mainland Greeks, it could only be imagined as a labyrinth, a place designed to hold a monster. The Minotaur myth itself may be a distant, distorted memory of the bull-leaping rituals depicted in Minoan frescoes, a political allegory for Athens' subservience to Crete. Ariadne comes from that world of ancient power, a world where the primary deity was not a thunder-wielding patriarch, but a powerful goddess, often shown holding snakes. Her dominion over the earth absolute. The exact nature of Minoan religion remains shrouded in mystery, as their script, Linear A, has yet to be deciphered, leaving used to interpret their world through silent frescoes and enigmatic artifacts. But Ariadne's heritage is one of profound feminine power, which makes her abandonment by a mortal hero all the more insulting. She is not some damsel to be won and then discarded. She is the keeper of the maze's secret, the king's daughter, the one who held the thread of life and death. Dionysus raises a hand, his fingers tracing a line in the air just above her forehead. A soft, golden light shimmers around his hand. He whispers a single word, a name, Ariadne. It is not a shout, not a summons. It is a key turning in a lock. Her eyes flutter open. They are the color of dark honey, and they are clouded with confusion and grief. She sees the figure kneeling beside her, the impossibly beautiful face, the rich purple robe, the strange, gentle light in his eyes. Fear flashes across her face, followed by exhaustion. She probably thinks she's hallucinating, that the sorrow has finally broken her mind. Do not be afraid, Dionysus says, his voice the soft murmur of the waves. The hero is gone. The man of fleeting promises has sailed away. Ariadne pushes herself up, scrambling back slightly, pulling her knees to her chest. Who are you? She asks, her voice hoarse from weeping. Another ghost to haunt this? Sure, the god smiles, a gentle, reassuring expression. No ghost, he says. I am the cure for all ghosts. I am the joy that comes after the sorrow. I am the vine that grows from the broken earth. He has an advantage, of course. When your opening line can be, I am a god, it tends to break the ice rather effectively. She stares at him, her human grief warring with the dawning, impossible realization of what is happening. She wakes not to the horrifying realization that her boyfriend has sailed away, but to the slightly less horrifying, the infinitely more confusing realization that a deity has taken his place. It's a lateral move, at worst. He offers her his hand. It is not a command. It is an invitation. Your story does not end here, daughter of Minos, he says, his voice full of a warmth that seems to push back the chill of her despair. It is. Only now beginning. Ariadne looks at his outstretched hand, then back at his face. The tears have stopped. In their place is a flicker of wonder, a spark of a future she could not have imagined. You watch from the edge of the beach, a silent witness to a myth being born, a heartbreak being rewritten into a divine romance by a god who knows, better than anyone, that the best vintages often come from crushed grapes. Ariadne looks at the god's outstretched hand for a long, silent moment. The fate of worlds can pivot on such small gestures. For her, the gesture is a choice, to remain in the ashes of her life with Theseus, or to step into an unknown, impossible fire. She places her hand in his. His skin is warm, and a gentle energy flows into her, a current of life that pushes back the cold tide of despair. As their fingers touch, the world around you seems to exhale. The light softens, taking on a golden, honeyed hue. The scent of wild roses and thyme intensifies, mingling with the now familiar aroma of impossible wine. It's the scent of the god's power, no longer a warning, but a welcome. You felt this on the ship, the air growing thick with portent just before the vines came. This is the same energy, but tuned to a different key, a melody of healing instead. Of wrath. Dionysus helps her to her feet. He does not pull her up. He simply offers his strength, and she rises on her own. He is the liberator, Eleutherios, a title he would earn in the cities of Greece, not for freeing them from tyrants, but for freeing the human spirit from the prison of its own quiet desperation. You are witnessing that liberation on a deeply personal scale. Grief is a harsh and barren soil. The god says softly, his eyes never leaving hers. But even there, something new can grow. He releases her hand and gestures to the dry sand at her feet. A single perfect ivy vine, the same kind that had terrorized your crew, pushes its way through the grains of sand. It grows not with the terrifying speed of the shipboard transformation, but with a gentle, deliberate grace. It sprouts its dark green, heart-shaped leaves, and then, at its tip, a single, star-like white flower unfolds its petals. Ariadne gasps, a small sound of pure wonder. She kneels and touches a petal, her fingers tracing its delicate edge. It's a simple trick, a small miracle, but it is enough. It is a sign that the world is not as cold and empty as she believed it to be just a moment ago. This is how he works. Not with thunderbolts, but with flowers. Not with pronouncements, but with a quiet, insistent presence that rewrites the rules of reality. She looks up at him, and the grief in her eyes is being replaced by something else, something you can only describe as dawning light. Frankly, his divine pickup artistry is terrifyingly effective. Theseus offered her marriage and a new life in Athens. Dionysus offers her a complete defiance of the natural order. It's not even a fair competition. You, meanwhile, are standing by a scraggly tamarisk tree, trying to look as non-threatening and unimportant as possible. You are the third wheel on a date between a heartbroken demigoddess and a full-blown deity. You feel like a stagehand who has accidentally wandered into the middle of the climactic scene. You clear your throat quietly, a small, awkward sound. Dionysus glances over at you, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. He hasn't forgotten you. You're his witness, the mortal camera recording the event for posterity. Ariadne's presence here, on Naxos, a powerhouse of the archaic Greek world, is no coincidence. In this era, before Athens became the sun around which all other Greek states orbited, Naxos was a dominant force, its wealth built on marble and its strategic position in the Cyclades. It was a place of power, a worthy stage for divine drama. And Ariadne herself is more than just a jilted lover. She is a figure of immense significance, a priestess from a civilization where women held positions of spiritual authority, unimaginable to the patriarchal mainlanders. Historians still puzzle over the exact relationship between the Minoan mother goddess and the later Greek pantheon, and whether figures like Ariadne were once goddesses in their own right, later demoted to mortal heroines and Athenian-centric myths. To see her here, rescued not by a hero but by a god, feels like a correction, a restoration of her proper status. Dionysus offers Ariadne his arm. "Come," he says gently, "this shore is a memory. Your future is elsewhere." She takes his arm, her posture no longer that of a victim, but of a queen. Together, they begin to walk back toward the path, leading the single white flower blooming alone on the sand. You fall into step behind them, your boots crunching on the gravelly path. You are now the official ferryman for the Aegean's newest power couple. The dolphins are going to love this. The walk back to the harbor is a study in quiet transformation. The light has begun to change, the harsh glare of noon softening into the long, golden shadows of late afternoon. The famous Naxian light, beloved by sculptors for the way it reveals every nuance of the marble, now seems to serve a different purpose, bathing the divine couple ahead of you in a gentle, ethereal glow. Dionysus and Ariadne walk together, their steps perfectly in sync. They speak to each other in low tones, their words lost to you, carried away by the sea breeze. You follow a dozen paces behind, close enough to be part of the procession, far enough to give them their space. It is a profoundly awkward role. You are no longer just a priest. You feel like you've been promoted to divine butler, and you haven't even been told where the silverware is kept as you re-enter the city. The mundane world rushes back in. The clang of the blacksmith, the shouting of the merchants, it all seems louder now, coarser after the sacred silence of the cove. But where Dionysus had been invisible before, he is now subtly present. People don't stare, but they seem to instinctively move aside. A path clears for the three of you through the bustling port, a small, unconscious parting of the human sea. They are making way not for a god they recognize, but for an aura of authority they cannot deny. Ariadne, who had been an abandoned woman, moments ago now walks with a serene confidence, her head held high. It's a remarkable turnaround. She has upgraded from a mortal hero with questionable loyalty to an immortal god with the power to manifest wine on demand. In the long run, this is a much better deal. Arrive back at your ship. It looks small and grimy, a piece of drab reality amidst the day's unfolding myth. The wood is stained with the memory of wine, the ropes are worn, the paint is peeling. It is a pirate ship, a working vessel. It is. No place for a princess, let alone a god's chosen companion. Dionysus seems to agree. He helps Ariadne onto the deck, then turns to survey the humble craft. A small, thoughtful frown touches his lips. "This will not do," he says, more to himself than to you. He raises a hand. There is no grand announcement, no flash of light. But the ship begins to change again. This time, there is no terrifying frenzy, no manifestation of predatory beasts. A soft green moss, as plush as velvet, carpets the rough planks of the deck. From the mast and the rails, not vines of grapes and ivy, but garlands of roses, lilies, and fragrant jasmine spontaneously bloom, their scent banishing the last lingering smells of salt fish and old rope. A simple wooden crate, once used for storing dried figs, transforms its wood smoothing and curving into an elegant, high-backed chair, cushioned with the same soft moss and adorned with flowers. It is a throne, a place of honor. Your drab little cargo hauler is being redecorated. First it was a vineyard, now it's a floral parade float. You sincerely hope the next transformation involves a fully stocked kitchen. This is all for her. A gesture of divine welcome. The ancient Greek world had its own specific rituals for marriage, including the pomp, a formal procession to lead the bride from her father's house to her new home. What you are witnessing feels like a divine accelerated version of that. Ariadne is being led from the house of her abandonment to her new life aboard this enchanted vessel. And her story is one of the most famous examples of apotheosis, the raising of a mortal to divine status. She will not just be Dionysus's consort, she will become an immortal, a goddess in her own right. Whether the ancient Greeks believed this, apotheosis was a literal physical transformation or a symbolic joining with the divine in the afterlife is a question whose answer is likely lost to the quiet dust of centuries. But for Ariadne, sitting on her new floral throne, the experience feels very, very real. Dionysus turns to you. "Raise the sail, Akotas," he commands, his voice gentle but firm. "We are leaving this island." You hurry to obey, your hands moving with their old, familiar skill. As you unfurl the sail, you glance out at the harbor's mouth. The dolphins are still there, your old crew. They leap and click and whistle, a celebratory chorus for the strange wedding procession they have just witnessed. They seem to understand. You pull on the ropes, the sail catches the evening breeze, and the enchanted ship begins to glide silently out of the harbor, leaving Naxos and its great marble gate behind. You're sailing into the sunset with a god for a captain and a newborn goddess for a passenger. You have no idea where you are going. You are just the driver. The sun has finally surrendered, sinking below the horizon in a final glorious blaze of orange and violet. The sea, which was a brilliant sapphire blue just an hour ago, has deepened to a dark, inky purple, the same color as the god's robe, the same color as the wine that stained your deck. The world has been reduced to three elements: the gentle, rhythmic sigh of the water against the hull, the vast, star-dusted canopy of the sky, and the quiet, breathing presence of the enchanted ship. You stand at the tiller, but you are not steering. The ship moves with a steady, purposeful grace, guided by a will that is not your own. Your job description has expanded from helmsman to captain, crew, and designated mortal. It's a promotion with a terrifying amount of responsibility and absolutely no pay dot ahead of you. On her mossy throne, Ariadne sits in silence. She is not weeping. The despair has been washed from her, replaced by a profound and quiet awe. She looks out at the darkening sea, perhaps seeing not an empty expanse, but a future. Dionysus stands beside her, his hand resting lightly on the high back of the floral chair. They are a portrait of serene power, a king and queen surveying their new borderless kingdom. The dolphins, your former crew, are still with you, their sleek forms occasionally breaking the water's surface in flashes of silver moonlight. They are the outriders of this strange divine procession. Ariadne raises a hand to her hair, a gesture of old habit, perhaps feeling for a crown or a circlet that is no longer there. A flicker of the old sadness crosses her face, a momentary shadow. She is still a princess, but her regalia, her home, her entire past was stolen from her by a forgetful hero. Dionysus sees the gesture. He sees the shadow. He steps in front of her and smiles. "A princess should have a crown," he says, his voice soft. He reaches up, not to the heavens, but as if plucking motes of light from the air itself. The stars seem to respond to him, to brighten his presence. He gathers the light in his hands, shaping it like a master goldsmith shaping fine wire. Between his palms, a circlet of brilliant, glittering light begins to form. It is a wreath, woven from tiny, captured stars, each one pulsing with a soft, internal fire. It is more beautiful than any crown forged of earthly metal. He holds it for a moment, a perfect glowing circle of light, and then, with infinite gentleness, he places it upon Ariadne's head. It settles into her dark hair, not with the weight of gold, but with the lightness of a memory, glowing with a soft, steady luminescence. This, then, is the famous corona borealis, the northern crown. Mythology tells us that upon Ariadne's death, Dionysus tossed her wedding crown into the sky to honor her, where it became a constellation. But here, in this moment, you see the story's true beginning. It is not a memorial. It is a gift, a promise. "This will be your diadem," Dionysus says, "so that you will never be forgotten. Mortals will look to the night sky and speak your name for 10,000 years. It's the ultimate romantic gesture, really. Better than a poem, more permanent than a statue. He's promising to write her name in the sky itself. Ariadne touches the stellar crown, her fingers brushing against pure light. A tear rolls down her cheek, but this time it is not a tear of sorrow. It is a tear of wonder. She is being initiated into a new existence, becoming a part of the god's own retinue, his sacred Dionysus. The Dionysus was the ecstatic band of followers who traveled with Dionysus, a chaotic mix of satyrs, maenads, and other divine beings. With Ariadne as his queen and you as his first mortal recruit, it seems he's starting a new chapter. You look up at the real stars, the familiar patterns you've used to navigate your entire life. You see the Great Bear, the dragon, the steady pole star. It remains a subject of learned speculation how much ancient sailors understood of the celestial mechanics versus simply seeing the stars as a reliable map painted on the heavens. You know their paths and their seasons, but you have never thought of them as things that could be held or given as a gift. Tonight, that has changed. The sky feels different now. More personal, more magical. The ship sails on, a silent, fragrant vessel cutting a path through the dark water, sailing under a new constellation worn by a new goddess, leaving the world of mortal heartbreaks far behind. The night deepens. The moon, a sliver of silver, casts a cool, pale light upon the water, turning the sea into a landscape of shifting mercury. The floral scent of the ship's new decor hangs in the air, a sweet, hypnotic perfume. Ariadne, exhausted by the emotional whirlwind of her day, has finally fallen asleep on her mossy throne, the stellar crown on her head glowing like a halo of captured fireflies. She looks peaceful, her face untroubled for the first time. Sleeping on this ship is its own form of sacred incubation, a healing dream state, though the visions it brings are less about practical prophecies and more about wine-fueled botany. It seems you remain at your post, a silent sentinel, watching the cosmos wheel slowly overhead. You are not tired. The energy of the god, a low, thrumming vibration that seems to live in the very wood of the ship, keeps you alert and awake. Dionysus stands at the bow, looking forward into the darkness. He is utterly still, a silhouette against the star-dusted sea. After an hour of silence that feels as deep and as old as the ocean itself, he speaks your name without turning around. Acodes, you start, your heart lurching. It seems gods don't really do small talk. They prefer to communicate through transformative experiences and cryptic statements about the future. Come, he says. You leave the tiller, which seems to hold its course without you, and walk softly across the moss-covered deck, your footsteps making no sound. You stand beside him at the bow. The air here feels charged, focused. You are looking at the world through his eyes. I am a new god to these lands, he says, his voice a low murmur. Or an old one may have forgotten. The true origins of Dionysus himself are a mystery that scholars still untangle. Was he an ancient god of the Greek soil whose worship was suppressed, or an immigrant deity from the wild lands to the east, like Thrace or Lydia? He seems to be both, a paradox in a purple robe. They have their gods of order, he continues, a hint of steel in his voice. Gods of the tidy temple, of the predictable sacrifice, of the city wall. They believe power is in the stone and the spear. They do not yet understand the power of the vine. He is speaking of the established Olympian order, the rigid, patriarchal pantheon of Zeus and his kin. His cult, a religion of personal, ecstatic experience, of blurred boundaries and emotional release, was often seen as a threat to that order. He speaks of the future, of the resistance his cult will face in cities like Thebes, where a mortal king, his own cousin Pentheus, will try to deny his divinity and pay a horrific price. They will resist, Dionysus murmurs. They will. Call me a charlatan, they will call my followers mad. They will build walls to keep out the wildness. But the wildness is already inside them. I do not bring it. I only unlock the door. He turns to you then, and his eyes seem to glow in the darkness. That is your task, Acodes, my first priest. You will not build a temple of stone. Your temple is the ship. You will not preach dogma. You will tell your story. He gestures with his hand, a sweep that takes in the sea, the sleeping princess, the dolphin escort, the starry sky. You will tell them what you saw. You will tell them that a god came, not in fire, but in wine, not with thunder, but with a smile. You will teach them how to see. You swallow, the weight of his words settling on you. You are to spread the word. Essentially, you've been made the head of marketing for a divine startup, and your only colleagues are a dolphin pod. He places a hand on your shoulder. The touch is not heavy, but it feels as if the entire weight of the night sky is pressing down on you, grounding you. Now rest, he says. The journey is long, and you will need your strength. He gestures to a patch of moss near the mast. It looks impossibly soft, inviting. You feel the exhaustion of the day finally claim you. You nod, unable to speak, and make your way to the spot. You lie down, the moss a cool, damp cushion beneath you. Your last waking sight is the sleeping face of Ariadne, her stellar crown casting a gentle light, and the dark, powerful figure of Dionysus at the bow, steering your strange, sacred vessel toward a dawn you cannot yet imagine. You wake to the gentle rocking of the ship. For a disoriented moment, you are back in your old life, expecting the familiar feel of a rough spun hammock and the slightly rancid smell of your shipmates. But the surface beneath you is impossibly soft, a cool, living cushion of moss, and the air is filled with the sweet, clean fragrance of jasmine and roses. It certainly beats your old bunk, which you were pretty sure had developed its own primitive ecosystem. You sit up, your joints protesting slightly, a reminder that even on an enchanted vessel, you are still a mortal man of a certain age. The memory of a dream clings to you, vivid and strange. You were back on your Terrenian pirate ship, the real one, but your crewmates were all dolphins. They were standing upright, wearing little sailor hats, and trying to play a game of Pentalitha, fumbling the sheep knuckles with their flippers and chattering in frustrated clicks. You were trying to explain the rules, but they couldn't understand you, and you couldn't understand them. The dream was a perfect distillation of your new reality, absurd, untranslatable, and profoundly lonely. The ancient world put great stock in dreams, viewing them as omens, divine messages, or visitations from the dead. You can't help but wonder what a professional dream interpreter in some grand city temple would make of yours. He'd probably prescribe less fish for dinner. Dawn is breaking. The eastern sky is a soft, bruised purple, slowly bleeding into rose pink and fiery gold at the horizon. The light catches the stellar crown on Ariadne's head, and for a moment it seems to dim, its light reabsorbed by the coming day. She is awake, sitting on her throne, but she is not looking at the sunrise. She is looking at Dionysus, who is now sitting cross-legged on the deck before her, talking to her in a low, gentle voice. She is listening with rapt attention, a small, serene smile on her face. She seems to be adjusting to her sudden deification with remarkable ease. There's no panic, no existential dread. Apparently, the onboarding process for becoming a goddess is surprisingly smooth. The ship continues its steady, silent progress through the water. Another island has appeared on the horizon, a rugged silhouette against the dawn. As you draw closer, it resolves into a place of steep green hills and rocky shores. A jolt of recognition goes through you. It is Icaria, the island where this all began, where your crew, in their greed, had found a sleeping boy in a purple robe and made the worst business decision in the history of piracy. There is a certain terrifying symmetry to returning here. It feels like the closing of a circle. The air here is good for the vine, Dionysus says, his voice carrying to you on the morning breeze. He has risen and now stands beside you, gazing at the island. They make a strong, dark wine on this island, a wine of legend. He is speaking of Pramnian wine, a vintage famous throughout the Greek world for its potency. Its exact nature is something poets and historians still argue about. Was it a specific type of grape, a style of winemaking, or just a catch-all term for any wine that could knock a man off his feet with a single cup? Whatever it was, Icaria was one of its reputed birthplaces. You guide the ship, or rather you stand at the tiller while the ship guides itself toward a secluded bay, hidden from the main sea lanes. The dolphins, who have been your faithful escort through the night, begin to fall back. They leap and whistle one last time, a chorus of farewells from your former life, and then turn back toward the open sea. Their part of the story is over. You watch them go, a strange ache in your chest. You are now truly and utterly alone with your gods. You have your divine mission to be a witness, a storyteller. But there is no training manual, no orientation packet. You are an apostle without a gospel, a priest without a prayer book, making it all up as you go along. The ship glides into the hidden cove as smoothly as a thought. The water here is shockingly clear, the pebbled seafloor visible many feet below. The bay is a perfect quiet crescent enclosed by steep, rocky hillsides covered in gorse and wild herbs. It feels untouched, a secret corner of the world. With a final gentle sigh, the ship's keel scrapes against the sand, and you come to a stop. The journey is over. For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, the constant motion has ceased. The silence that rushes in is profound, broken only by the buzz of insects and the distant cry of a gull. This is it. This is the place. Dionysus steps off the ship, his feet landing softly on the wet sand. He turns and offers a hand to Ariadne, who takes it and descends from the deck with a newfound regal grace. Her floral throne remains on the ship, a silent, fragrant monument to the journey. You are left on board, feeling suddenly superfluous. Your first official duty as a priest, it seems, is to make sure nobody tracks too much sand onto the magical moss. It's less glamorous than you might have imagined. The god and the new goddess walk up the beach, hand in hand. And where they walk, the world seems to quicken. A patch of dry, scrubby grass near a rock seems to grow greener, lusher. From a fissure in a sun-baked cliff face, a trickle of clear, fresh water begins to seep, forming a tiny, perfect pool. Dionysus isn't performing grand miracles. He is simply being here, and his presence is enough to turn this wild landscape into a sacred space. A temenos, a precinct cut off and consecrated to a god. They are not conquering this land. They are wedding it. They stop near the center of the small valley that slopes down to the beach. They don't look like gods of wild revelry and madness. They look like a young couple who have just found the perfect spot to build a home, quietly discussing where the garden might go. You watch them, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over you. This is not the terrifying, transformative power you witnessed on the sea. This is something else, a generative, nurturing power. Historians still debate whether the rites of Dionysus were always scenes of frenzied mountain dancing, or if some were quieter, more pastoral affairs focused on the slow, steady miracle of agriculture. Looking at them now, you suspect the truth is that the god contains both the storm and the calm that follows. You finally step off the ship yourself, your bare feet sinking into the warm sand. The ship behind you is your only link to the world you knew. It is your temple, your monastery, your memory palace. Dionysus turns to you, a gentle smile on his face. He doesn't give you a list of instructions or a schedule of holy rites. He simply gestures to the idyllic scene before you. Watch, Acotes, he says. Remember this. This is how it begins. And you understand. Your role is not to do, but to see. Not to preach, but to witness. Your priesthood is one of memory. You are the vessel for the story. You look from the peaceful cove to the enchanted ship, from the new goddess with stars in her hair to the ancient god who holds her hand. Your old life of dodging storms and haggling over cargo is a distant memory, a story about someone else. Your new life, navigating the currents of divinity, has just washed ashore. You sit on a sun-warmed rock, the first member of a new congregation, and you begin the simple, sacred act of paying attention. The days that follow fall into a rhythm that is both strange and deeply peaceful. Your life, once governed by the winds, and the demands of commerce, is now measured by the rising and setting of the sun over this quiet cove. You are a holy man now, a priest, but your sacred duties are surprisingly domestic. You are the caretaker of a god's household, and it turns out that even divine beings appreciate a tidy living space. You spend your mornings sweeping fallen petals from the mossy deck of the ship with a broom fashioned from tamarisk branches. You ensure the freshwater pool that seeped from the rock face remains clear and clean. You have, in essence, traded the high-stakes world of piracy for the low-stakes world of glorified groundskeeping. It's a significant improvement in job security. Try to figure out how to provide for your new companions. You are a practical man. People need to eat. But what do you offer a god who can turn a ship into a vineyard? What does a goddess who wears a crown of stars want for lunch? You fall back on your old skills. You fish from the rocks, catching small silver sea bream. You gather wild greens and tart berries from the hillsides. You learn the rhythms of this small piece of land, and you discover that your gods do, in fact, eat. They don't seem to need to, but they take pleasure in it. They enjoy the taste of a perfectly grilled fish, the sweetness of a sun-ripened fig. It's another quiet lesson. Divinity doesn't have to mean detachment from the simple. Sensory joys of the world dot in the afternoons. You watch them. Dionysus and Ariadne spend their hours exploring the hillsides, walking hand in hand through the wild landscape. He shows her things. He'll point to a gnarled, seemingly barren olive tree, and under his gaze, a new silvery green shoot will emerge. He'll touch a patch of dry earth, and a cluster of wild crocuses will push through the soil. These are not the grand, terrifying transformations of your voyage. They are small acts of creation, gentle persuasions. He is teaching her, and you, the grammar of his power. It is the language of life itself. Ariadne, for her part, is blossoming. The sorrow has been completely erased from her face, replaced by a radiant, confident serenity. She is learning to wield her own nascent divinity. One afternoon, you see her humming a low Cretan melody to a frightened lizard on a rock. The lizard, instead of skittering away, grows calm, its tiny eyes fixed on her. The scene is small, almost comical, but it is a sign. She is a goddess of solace, a calming presence, to balance his wild ecstasy. This partnership is the foundation of their new cult, the Dionysus. This sacred group was more than just a traveling party. For many followers, it was a new family, a community bound by shared experience rather than blood. You were the first human, member of this new divine family. Your duties are simple: fish, sweep, and try not to stare too obviously when your employers are casually rewriting the laws of nature. One day, you feel the need to make a proper offering. It feels wrong to just hand the god a cooked fish on a leaf. You build a small, simple altar from flat stones near the shore. You have no statues, no incense, so you do what feels right. You take the first and best of your day's catch, grill it perfectly, and place it on the stones. You pour a little fresh water beside it from a seashell. You add a sprig of wild thyme for fragrance. The ancient Greeks had a whole lexicon of offerings, from simple libations of milk and honey to small, honey-sweetened cakes called plakis. Your humble meal of fish and water feels woefully inadequate, but it is all you have. You step back, feeling foolish. Later that evening, after the gods have retired to the ship, you return to the altar. The fish is gone. A single perfect, impossibly fragrant rose lies in its place. You pick it up. It is your receipt. Your offering has been accepted. The story begins as a whisper. A shepherd, chasing a stray goat higher into the hills than usual, glimpses the cove from above. He doesn't see gods. He sees a ship covered in impossible flowers, anchored in a bay that should be empty. He smells the faint, sweet scent of roses on the wind. He sees a beautiful woman with something bright in her hair walking on the beach. He sees a quiet man, you, tending a small stone altar. It is strange, it is out of place, and so he talks. The story spreads through the small, scattered villages of Icaria. A strange ship, a beautiful woman, a quiet man. The details shift and blur with each retelling, as stories do. But the core of it, the wonder, remains. A few days later, your first visitor arrives. He is an old man, a farmer whose olive groves have been struggling with a blight. He comes cautiously down the path to the beach, leaning heavily on a gnarled staff. He looks at you, at the floral ship, at the general atmosphere of serene impossibility, and his eyes are wide with a mixture of fear and hope. He doesn't know what this place is, but he knows it is not of the ordinary world. This is the moment you have been dreading. You are no longer just a witness. You are now the official spokesperson, the front desk. I heard there was a new power here, the old man stammers, his eyes fixed on you. A healing power. You have no idea what to say. What is the protocol here? Do you have him fill out a form? Do you offer him a welcome pamphlet? Come to Dionysus. We have great wine and a proven track record of turning pirates into marine life. You fall back on the only thing you have, your story. You invite him to sit on a sun-warmed rock, and you talk. You tell him about the voyage, about the ropes that wouldn't hold, the wine that flowed from the wood, the vines that grew from the mast. You tell him about the dolphins. You speak simply, a sailor telling a tale. You don't use words like divinity or epiphany. You just say what you saw as you speak. Dionysus himself emerges from the ship. He approaches the old farmer, who shrinks back in alarm. The god smiles gently. He doesn't speak. He picks up a handful of dry, afflicted leaves the farmer has brought with him. He crushes them in his hand, and when he opens his palm, all that remains is a pinch of fine, healthy green dust which he scatters on the wind. He places a hand on the farmer's shoulder, a gesture of quiet blessing, and then walks away, leaving you to handle the follow-up questions. It is a classic move of divine management. Perform the miracle, then delegate the paperwork. The farmer is stunned into silence. He looks at his own hands, then at you, then at the retreating back of the god. He doesn't fully understand what has happened, but he feels it. The Greek concept of enthusiasmos, having a god within you, was the core of this new religion. It wasn't about understanding doctrine. It was about feeling the presence. The old man felt it. He leaves a simple offering on your stone altar, a handful of his own olives, the best he had, and walks away with a new lightness in his step. You realize this is your job now. You are the interpreter. You translate the raw, overwhelming power of the divine into stories a mortal heart can hold. Your faith is not built on complex theology like the grand state-run cult of Athena in Athens, with its monumental temples and its famous Panathenaic festival where the entire city celebrated the weaving of a new robe for the goddess's statue. Your faith is a grassroots movement. It is personal. It is built on the story of one man on one ship who saw something incredible. More people come in the following weeks, drawn by the farmer's story, a woman hoping for a child, a young man about to set out on his first sea voyage. They bring small gifts. They listen to your story. The quiet cove is becoming a church. And you, Akotes, the pirate, are its accidental, bewildered, and surprisingly effective priest. Your quiet cove is not so quiet anymore. The story you have been telling has taken root in the dry Icarian soil and is beginning to sprout. People come now not just one by one, but in small groups. They bring with them flasks of the dark, strong local wine, loaves of bread, and goat milk. Cheese. They bring musical instruments, a shepherd's simple flute, a hand drum, a lyre with 3 strings missing. They are no longer coming just to ask for blessings. They are coming to share in the presence of this place. Your little sanctuary is getting reviews, 5 stars. Great ambience. Miracles are a bit unpredictable, but effective. In the evenings, they gather on the beach. They light small fires, their flames dancing in the gathering twilight. They share their food and wine. Someone begins to play a simple, haunting melody on a flute. Someone else picks up the rhythm on a drum. It is not a ceremony. It is not a ritual. It is a spontaneous celebration, a party. From the deck of your flower-draped ship, Dionysus and Ariadne watch. They do not direct it, they simply allow it to happen. Their presence is the permission slip for this quiet joy, this release from the daily grind of goat herding and olive dash tending. You see in this burgeoning festival the seed of something much grander. In the great city of Athens, which thinks itself the center of the world, they have their own festivals for this god, the Dionysia. There, his worship is a massive state-sponsored event with formal processions, choral singing competitions, and dramatic performances. It is organized, politicized, and spectacular. But you know with a certainty that settles deep in your bones that it all began like this, with a few people on a beach, sharing wine and a story, feeling a connection to something wild and holy. Evening, as the music grows more spirited, a young man, emboldened by the wine and the strange magic of this place, begins to dance. His movements are wild, uninhibited. He leaps and spins, his arms thrown wide as if to embrace the sky. Others join him, their movements mirroring his ecstatic energy. They are the first maenads and satyrs of this new age, though without the budget for leopard skins and elaborate horns just yet. The exact origin of the satyrs, those half-man, half-goat companions of the god, is something that even future scholars will scratch their heads over. Were they ancient nature spirits absorbed into his retinue, or symbolic representations of humanity's untamed animal nature? Watching these farmers and shepherds dance with wild abandon, you suspect the answer is simply yes. Later that night, after the last of the villagers have drifted home, full of wine and wonder, Dionysus approaches. He holds something in his hands. It is a mask. It is carved from a single piece of dark wood, polished smooth. The features are exaggerated, stylized. The mouth is open, as if in song or proclamation. The eyes are wide, hollow voids. It is not the face of a man, nor is it the face of the god as you know him. It is something in between, a face of pure expression. The mask, the prosopon, was a central, sacred object in Dionysian worship. It was not for hiding. It was for transforming. By putting on the mask, a worshiper could step outside of their own identity and become a vessel for the god, a channel for the story. The story is yours to tell. Acodes, the god says, his voice as serious as you've ever heard it, but the face of the story must be its own. He offers you the mask. You take it. The wood is cool and smooth in your hands. It feels heavy, freighted with a purpose you are only just beginning to understand. You are not just the teller of the tale anymore. You are its keeper. You have become the world's first divine event planner, a job that involves managing both mortals' expectations and God's whims, and now it seems you're also in charge of props. You look from the mask to the god, and you realize your role has shifted once more. You are not just to remember the story. You are to embody it. You hold the wooden mask in your hands. It is a key. You have spent these past weeks, perhaps months' time, has become a fluid thing in this cove, using your own words, your own face, to tell the tale. But the tale is bigger than you. It is a force of nature like the sea you once sailed. To tell it properly, you must get your own small self out of the way. You have become the curator of a one-act play that happens to be the literal truth. The grand tragedies and comedies will come later, with proper stages and professional criers. For now, it's just you, a small crowd, and a story that happened to be true. The next evening, the villagers gather again. The fires are lit, the wine is passed around. The soft, piercing notes of an aloes, the double reed pipe whose sound can wind its way directly into the soul, begins to play. This instrument, more than any other, was the sound of Dionysus, capable of inspiring everything from melancholy to ecstatic madness. The people fall quiet, their faces turn toward you. It is time. You take a deep breath, the salty air filling your lungs. You stand before them, before your small congregation, and you lift the mask. You do not place it over your face. Not yet. You hold it before you, a shield and a conduit, and you begin to speak, but your voice is different. It is deeper, more resonant. It is the voice of the story itself. You speak of the Mediterranean Sea, of a greedy crew and a beautiful boy. You speak of ropes that fell away like water. You speak of wine flowing from the wood, of vines and ivy, and the roar of a phantom panther. The words are the same ones you have used before, but now they carry a new weight, a new power. They are no longer your memories. They are a living myth, unfolding in the firelight. You tell them of the dolphins, their human terror dissolving into sleek, aquatic grace. You tell them of the journey to Naxos, of a heartbroken princess left on the sand. You tell of a crown made of stars, a promise written in the heavens. As you speak, you are no longer Akotes, the ex-pirate, the accidental priest. You are the helmsman. You are the witness. You are the voice of every person who has ever been lost and then found, broken and then remade. The future of this story is vast and unknowable to you. You do not know that from these small seaside gatherings, a religion of profound influence will spread across the world. You do not know that the art of storytelling you are pioneering will blossom into the great Greek theater, a sacred rite in honor of your god. We can only speculate about how many historical events, how many real Akotes and Ariadnes were the seeds for these enduring myths. But you know this, the story is true. You lived it. You will not get a statue in Athens, but you get something better, a quiet life and a boss who can literally turn water into wine, which is a fantastic perk. Your journey is complete. You have found your harbor. And as the story ends, your own role dissolves, leaving only the tale itself, echoing forever in the gentle sound of the waves. Now, the story is over. Let it dissolve like salt in the worm. See, the fires on the beach are burning low, their flames sinking into soft, glowing embers. The music has faded, leaving only the gentle, rhythmic whisper of the waves washing against the shore. A sound that has measured time since the world was young, a sound that asks nothing of you. Let your own thoughts burn down to soft embers. Let the day's concerns fade into the quiet of the night. Feel the weight of your body, a comfortable, heavy anchor in the soft bed beneath you. You are safe. You are still. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. There is only the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, in and out, a slow tide, washing away all that you no longer need to hold. The stars of Ariadne's crown are wheeling slowly across the deep velvet sky. They are distant, silent, and beautiful. And like them, you are a part of this vast and quiet night. Allow the last wisps of the story to drift away like smoke from a dying fire. Let the quiet of the cove fill your mind. Let the darkness be a soft blanket, and now just rest. Sleep now, sleep.